What you need to get started with Meshtastic radio, you need a Meshtastic radio, which I have in the white box in the upper left-hand corner, a battery or some other power source. I'm going to use a battery that will fit inside the case. That's in the little brown box. You need a companion device, Bluetooth capable, and it's going to actually run an app that will control the Meshtastic radio. And it's going to be communicating with the radio via Bluetooth. You also need some way to charge your battery or directly power the Meshtastic radio, and it's going to be a USB cable. It's going to be involved, USB-C to connect to the radio probably, at least to the radio I'm using. And then something to plug that into, which could be a laptop, a USB port, or I'm going to use an AC adapter in order to charge the battery. And it will also serve to update firmware. And you'll also want some kind of a container for the radio and its antennas. I'm going to use a 3D printed box that the plans are available for it if you want to print it yourself, or there's a site where you can order one already printed for $20. But you can also make a case yourself, simple as I actually put the radio originally in the brown little box that contained its battery. I put the radio and the battery in there. Or you could use any sort of a plastic box. Some people use Tic Tac boxes for these radios, but in this case I'm going to use a commercially available 3D printed box that I'll put a link to later on in the video. For the radio, I'm using a RAK, that's R-A-K, RAK Wisblock starter kit. As the radio, it's in the middle in this photograph here, the lower middle, the main circuit board. Two antennas on either side of the radio. There's a Bluetooth or BLE antenna on the left of the main circuit board, and a LoRa, that's long range, L-O-R-A, LoRa antenna for these radios that are long range, low power, using less than 1 watt. And then there's also, you can see in the photograph here, way on the left and the bottom, a little bag of hardware for mounting the radio to a case, and also for mounting additional modules to the main circuit board, like a GPS module or some environmental sensors to the radio. In addition to that, all the way over on the right and the bottom is a USB cable. The one that ships with this radio is a USB-C on the radio side to a USB-A connector designed to go into a laptop or some other source of power. It's absolutely imperative to connect both the antennas, both the Bluetooth and the LoRa antennas, before applying power, before connecting a battery or any other source of power to the radio. A radio that transmits into nothing, well, you can think of a rifle that has a plugged barrel, so there's no way for the energy it's producing to escape from the barrel. It's not going to be good, and it's not going to explode like the rifle would, but you're going to let smoke out of certain parts probably and destroy the radio. So don't do that. So the next step is to connect the two antennas, and these are tiny little coax connectors, the UFL connectors, which they don't screw on, they snap on. You need to push firmly straight down to connect the antennas. Now we need to put the radio and its two antennas into its case. First step is to remove the top of the case by sliding it to the right. Next step is to slide the back panel and the radio cradle, which is attached to the back panel, out of the front panel, which is the main part of the case. Finally, the radio cradle slides out of the back panel, leaving us with a view of all 4 pieces of the case. Now we need to snap the RAK radio board into the main opening in the cradle with the USB port facing the bottom of the cradle. Pictured here is the wrong way to do it. Do not leave any space between the RAK board and the cradle at the bottom edge where the USB port is. If you leave space there, any space at all, you will not be able to access the USB port from outside of the case to plug in the radio and charge the battery. So you do want to push the RAK board down past the tiny little plastic tabs near the 4 corners. If you inspect the cradle, you'll see that there are little tiny plastic tabs there. I didn't actually succeed in getting it past all 4 of them, but I did get it to snap into the bottom 2, which is crucial for getting the USB port exposed, and also one of the 2 top tabs, which keeps me from pushing the radio up out of its location when plugging in the USB-C plug. So try to get 3 of them attached and make sure the bottom 2 are snapped in for sure. And this is how the bottom edge should look with the RAK board fully snapped into the cradle. Next, it's time to connect the antennas. The LoRa antenna snaps into the top antenna slot. Leave the adhesive backing on the antenna. We don't need to use that adhesive. It just snaps into place in this slot. Do coil up excess wire, avoiding kinks. Try not to tug too hard on the solder connection. Then attach or snap the Bluetooth antenna into the side antenna slot, which in this photo is the upper edge. Again, you want to coil up excess wire and avoid tugging on solder connections too much. Now it's time to connect the battery, and these radios are not reverse polarity protected, so it's absolutely critical that you connect the battery in the correct way. Note that on the side of the battery socket, which is on the radio board, there's clearly a red plus sign to indicate the positive side of the socket. The red positive lead of your battery must connect to the pin, the positive pin in the JST socket on the radio. Just take a look at the socket and look at the plug. The plug has a ridge on the top that has to slide into a corresponding slot on the socket on the board, and if that's going to put the black wire into contact with the red pin of the socket on the board, you're going to smoke your radio, so you don't want to do that. Either get a different battery or very carefully switch the leads of your battery, which will require cutting them and resoldering them and being careful not to short them together while you're doing that before you plug this thing into your radio. The battery I bought, since there's no standard way for the plugs to be connected to these batteries, I used the recommended battery for this case, and the polarity was correct without having to be reversed. This photo shows a good orientation for the battery. It just lays on top of the cradle into which you've snapped the radio and its antennas, so that we can then slide this whole thing into the bottom panel. And here we are sliding the cradle containing the radio and its antennas and the battery sitting on top of it into the back panel of the box. Then the back panel with the cradle and the battery slide into the front panel, the main part of the box. Finally, the top panel slides into place. If you snap it all the way into place, it may take considerable effort to open it up again. You can do it. I push down pretty firmly with both thumbs and slide it with some effort out of position. But what I prefer to do is just to leave the top slightly ajar, as is shown in the next photo. Then plugging the Meshtastic radio into a USB cable, a USB-C plug in the case of my radio, and the other end into some power source like your laptop or a USB port on a power strip or an AC adapter like I'm using. And what you should see is on the left a red light indicating that the battery is charging, and on the right hand side you should see a blinking green light indicating that things are working well for the radio itself. Once you've downloaded the Meshtastic app to a companion device, in this case a phone, and paired the radio and the companion device on Bluetooth, there's a crucial configuration step. In my app, for an Android phone, under the meatball menu, the three vertical dots in the upper right-hand corner, I select Radio Configuration. In the Radio Configuration menu, select LoRa, L-O-R-A. In the LoRa Configuration menu, you look down at Region, and in the photograph shown here, it's unset, which means we haven't specified a region where we're going to be using the radio. The problem with that is that it will not know what frequency to transmit on, because different countries have different regulations about what frequencies Meshtastic radio can be on, and so you need to set the region where you're located and where you intend to operate the radio. And here I have selected my region, the US. Then you want to click Send so that your companion device, in this case my phone, will send this new configuration to the Meshtastic radio. If the new configuration is sent correctly to the Meshtastic radio, you'll get an acknowledgement of that fact. It'll say delivery confirmed by the Meshtastic radio. While the Meshtastic radio reboots so that it can implement the new configuration, menu options will be grayed out as shown in this photo. When the rebooting is complete, menu options will appear as they normally do. Two other things you might want to change while you're looking at the radio configuration menu. Under User, you might want to change the long and short usernames for your radio. These are the names that will appear to others when they look at their list of visible nodes. The other thing you might want to change is the Bluetooth pin. By default, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for everybody, for all the Meshtastic radios of this sort anyway. And if you don't want to have somebody drive up close to your location and see that you're transmitting Bluetooth, and then pair with your Meshtastic radio and mess all your settings up, then you might want to change the default Bluetooth pin.